We are excited that you're joining us today, and Amy Hogan is going to help lead the discussion today. We thought, what with the end of the school year, this would be the perfect time for you to reflect back on your academic year and come and join us today to share one big success that you consider you achieved in your classes this year, and then also to share one thing that you would change for the upcoming school year. And Amy has created a Google Doc where you can drop in any slides or any comments that you'd like to make. But I'm going to turn everything over to Amy, and I think Amy's going to share first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I created a set of Google Slides, everybody, and I put the link in the chat. So just confirm to me that you can all get there. And I think if we all just make one slide per person, I think that would be nice. One slide per person, put your name and affiliation, one thing you felt was successful this year, and that could be teaching, not teaching. I mean, let's all agree that there probably have been other successes. One thing you would change, and then anything else, just add whatever else. And so if you go to the Google Slides, you can just, insert a slide, get your own slide, and then just include that information. And I've included mine on slide 3, so you can see what I've done if you want to take a sneak peek. And Chris, you're doing one too, yes? Let's take a few minutes. So Chris, are you doing one too?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
I'm typing right now.
Beautiful. And let's see, Rebecca, are you doing one? Trina? Henry? Love it. Full participation. Oh, Trina, this doesn't have to be about teaching. I am sure you can think of successes you've had.
Oh, yeah, we got through this year with lots of NCTM virtual conferences.
Right. All right. Listen, that's a slide.
Okay. All right.
Come on. If you were in Mrs. Hogan's class, you're going to participate.
Okay. So I insert a slide, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
telling
just
me?
insert one at the end. You'll be
Okay.
okay. Wonderful. Non-teachers are welcome too. It's been that kind of year. And you know what? We need everybody we can get in this education world. We need a lot of support. So that's great.
Okay, done.
Yay. Fabulous. All right, I'll give everybody another minute. Chris, what slide are you on? I don't see your slide.
I'm trying to get it in.
Oh, okay, good.
It may be at the end.
Mm-hmm. Save the best for last, I see. I see.
I don't know about that, but
Already. Okay.
some reason I can't get it in.
Let's see. Can you get into the slide?
Yeah, I'm into the slides. Let me send it to you, Amy, and I'll
I
let you.
will.
do
I'll do it for you.
Yeah, let me send it to you. I've been having trouble with my computer today, so
Oh no, I hate those days.
yes, it's been one of those days. I'll send it to you and I'll let you put it in.
I will. I'm happy to do that. And if anybody else needs help, I'll help them too. But y'all are looking fabulous. Okay, got you in, Chris.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I had a student with computer problems today too. I was so unfortunate. All right, are we ready, everybody? I think we can, if we need another minute, we can kind of sneak it in there. I'll go first. So hello, everybody. I'm Amy Hogan, teaching at Brooklyn Tech High School in New York City. I feel like I could think of a lot of things that were successful, so I figured I'd throw in two. This year, I really struggled with trying to come up with nice assessments that are flexible, give kids choice, can be done in a variety of ways. So here's something I gave my students for Unit 7, which is the inference for means. And each class had either animal, vegetable, mineral, or New York City theme. And so I gave them a list to choose from. And here's my professional tip. If you have 9 groups, make 12 choices so that even the last group has a few things to choose from. And they really liked it. And all they had to do was write a problem that would be solved using a 1 sample t-test, alpha level of 5%. They had to have a sample size of 125. And they had to create some statistics that made it so that the p-value was between 3 and 7%. And then they had to do the problem and I think interpret their p-value. So it was very creative and I liked it a lot. So I'm going to do more things like that. And I did post a lot of annotated student work. So each assignment that I would give my students, I would make sure I would have one student example with my notes or my grading, just in case a kid couldn't make it to class or they wanted to refer back to it. And I think my students like that a lot. And then going forward, if I could change things, I would love to figure out how to do more with less. How can we do less homework, or have shorter assignments and stuff like that. All right, so who's next? Now I just did a white screen. How do I go back? Where did my screen go? There's me. There's you. Oh no, now I'm having computer problems, Chris.
Let's see if I can pull it. Maybe I could share the screen. Looks like, see Amy? Looks like Beverly is next.
Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, let's go back. Going forward. All right, escape again. Sorry, everybody. Not sorry. Let's try this. Present from here. Okay, here's Beverly's screen. So Beverly, you wanna?
Yeah, hi. So I'm from Jackson Local Schools in Ohio, Beverly Bailey, 28 years teaching math. So this one's, I have to be honest, this is one of the most challenging ones I've had. But one of my successes was just, we were in person all year this year since August 20th, with about 90% of our kids showing up every day. And my big thing this year that I tried was these ABC books. And I just had to do something different at the end of the year. I just had to do like something exciting, something fun. And it was so worth it. The kids learned so much from it. In the evaluation on the last day of school, the kids were like, that was the best thing ever. I learned more from that than from anything else. And it was a lot of work. It was a big challenge. It was a big project, but totally worth it. One thing I would change is the whole e-learning thing. Our kids were allowed to come and go as they pleased. So they would just be able to sign in. And it was just a struggle trying to get assignments online for them and trying to deal with all the kids that were in class that day as well. I had about anywhere from 85 to 90% of my kids in class. So, and then my question is, are those Tuesday night webinars going to continue? Because those were great this year. They were so helpful. Like I would not have gotten through the year without them.
So when you say Tuesday night webinars, are you speaking about our chats or?
They were on Tuesday nights with Shonda Long.
Oh, that was the NCTM.
Yeah, the
Not
NCTM
webinars?
ones.
Trina
Yeah.
would be better able to answer that for us.
I can. We have continued doing, yes, for at least, I know at least through the summer, it's something we really like. So we're going to continue them. There's several already slated and more are coming on board. So
Cool.
those have been really useful, as I mentioned in mine, about building community and continuing our own learning. So yeah, they will continue. Glad those were beneficial. I love them.
Next up is Michael.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael from Washington, D.C., and I had very few successes this year. We saw it all. We started fully remote, then we switched to hybrid, then we switched back to fully remote, then we switched back to hybrid, and then my wife said she didn't want me coming in, so I went back to fully remote while the rest of the school stayed hybrid, and then we went fully in person starting in April. So we had it all. And the only thing that worked consistently across all of those was the statistics Jeopardy. So I made about 400 questions, and I have a randomly chosen student and a randomly chosen question, and the students really enjoy it. If you'd let me share my screen, I could give you a sample of how it works.
You should be able to share, Michael.
Okay, I'll give this a go.
I'll let Amy stop and.
Okay, so I'm going to share screen here, and what you do is you just punch your student names in here. So I'll just make a few crazy names. These are not real student names, obviously. Okay, and I'll just go fast through the rest of them. Okay, and once your student names are loaded, then you can just randomly choose. This is where all the questions are stored. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. There's nothing fancy to it. And this is the organization of questions by categories. And so what I'll do is I'll say something like, okay, the category is probability, and the randomly chosen student is student F. And here's your question, or actually it's your answer, I should say. Here's your answer, DF. And what is the question? Well, what is degrees of freedom? Okay. And then if that student doesn't get it, I can choose another randomly chosen student for the same question just by hitting a macro. And oh, the must-pass quiz, that's something that I've been doing for the last however many years. At the end of the test, at the end of the school year, all the seniors have to take the must-pass quiz, and they must pass. They all do. The pass rate is 100% for the last 18 years, but there's a lot of gnashing of teeth that goes on with this. And one of the questions here is, let's see what the question is. Conditional probability of obtaining a result as extreme as or more extreme than the test statistics seen, given that the null hypothesis is true. Anybody? Anybody want to ring in? Amy?
I'll take p-value for $100.
Ah, but you don't get credit because you have to say what is the p-value?
Oh, what is a p-value? Yeah. Well, if it was round one of Jeopardy, I would get away with it.
That's right. In round one, you get away with that. But in round two, you don't get credit for that. And so anyway, you get the idea of how it works. The students just love this, and since it's on the screen, it plays equally well in hybrid or all in person or all at home.
Michael, would you be able to send that to Chris and she can share it with the group?
Um,
Maybe.
Well, it's an Excel spreadsheet, so you have to have Excel.
Yeah.
It doesn't work under Google Sheets.
That would be, I mean, I think a lot of people have Excel. That would be great. I think my students would like it.
I tell you what, how about I post it on my website and then anybody
There
can.
we go. Even better. Even better.
Sounds great.
And
So
then
my
give us-
website, I'll just give you the website address right now. It's modd.net. And so if you go to that, I'll post it later tonight as a download. Okay.
That's great.
Okay.
That's fabulous. And what about one thing that you would change?
Oh, so many things I would change. It's hard to know where to start. I'm going to start inferential stat earlier, especially if we're on. We lost 35% of our class time this year. So I was trying to teach all of inferential statistics in about 2 months, which just really isn't enough time. And so I'd start that earlier and also start exposing them to the formula sheet earlier, definitely. I like the organization of the new formula sheet much better than the old one, but for some reason the students have more trouble with the new one than with the old one. I don't know what that's about.
It's almost overload in some ways, probably. Yeah. Beautiful. That's great. Okay. All right, Trina, you're up.
Okay, all right. Well, I think a success this year, just speaking in terms of the work that I did this year, was really building more of a math ed community, both for me personally, but also I think for the organization. As was asked about earlier about the webinars, one of the things we saw is there were a lot of people who got engaged that don't normally get to come to a conference, for example. And this turned out to be a wonderful way to bring together the math ed community. And also, especially last summer when we did the first 100 days of professional learning, that was very helpful, I think, as people were trying to transition into, as was mentioned earlier, sometimes you're in person, sometimes you're virtual, sometimes you're both, sometimes you're neither. It just was crazy. And so people found a support in that. And I put two things, sorry, I learned a lot. And I've also been learning much more about statistics and data science. So that's been something. I never taught statistics. I was a high school math teacher, but I never taught statistics other than a little bit within some of the courses, which is one of the things that I hope will be different in the future. I'm hoping that people are integrating it more across pre-K through 12 because it needs to be across the board, not just waiting until you take a stat course, in high school. And then something to change. It's not really a change, as I said, it's really to continue to find ways to build our math stat ed community. So, and I guess I could add that we need to think more about how to get it pre-K through 12 integrated. I could add that. So.
I applaud that. I like that idea a lot. All right, Henry. You ready, Henry?
I'm on mute. I'm sorry, I was on mute.
No, it's okay.
I didn't catch that. Hi, Henry Cronenberg from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As I mentioned in my mute state, I'm wrapping up 50 years of teaching. I think this will be my last semester. I'm addressing a success I had with a class at Marquette University for a course that is very similar to a high school stat course, I think, and very reluctant students in this class. We often describe them as the students that simply take a class to check it off and move on. But I had a really neat, I think, experience with this group of kids, all done through a online lecture system method on developing a statistical study. The students created with my assistance and certainly my oversight, because I didn't want this to go rampant, a survey. And it was a result of working with some material that I wrote that ultimately creates an interest in the generational levels of a population. So we defined for our project a population in which it was our friends and family of members of our class. I know that's kind of elusive, and I indicated to them that under the best circumstances, we would probably not be doing a real genuine statistical study of collecting data, but we're going to do the best we can. The survey turned out to be very interesting to the students, and I'll highlight one question in particular in just a moment. But in the development of this project, every student was asked to distribute the survey and collect the results from at least 5 members of what we defined as our population. In other words, family and friends of theirs. They added the survey results to a spreadsheet Excel file that I structured for them. By the time we were done, we had over 100 some results from that survey, from the survey. And then the students were asked to simply make a statistical question, to use some methods to address that question. Most of the questions were categorical types of questions, therefore yes, no, or A, B, C, etc. There were a couple of numerical questions. So they did a variety of things, a scatter plot, a two-way tables, etc. And they were to write a small report for it. The reports were very moving. But here's the one question which I'll cite as my success. And that was the question, at this point in your time, what was the most significant purchase you made? And then they did this as a background to the generational levels that we talked about. And we divided our group into generation X, baby boomers, silent generation, millennials, and generation Z. And from the results that they got, it was very interesting. There was no strong association noted with that question, which was disappointing to some of the kids. But I pointed out again, our data collection was maybe questionable. But what we did determine from this is that there was some differences. And one of the kids that wrote a neat report said, I had such an interesting family discussion at a meeting on that question alone. The thing I would have done differently is I should have listened to the kids more about the fact that they wanted to add some data item to the survey collection about who they actually distributed the survey to, meaning mother, father, sister, uncle, aunt. In other words, what was the relationship or connection of the person to this defined population that we had? Anyway, that was a piece that if I would have added, I think we could have had some interesting connections about how did mothers answer that question about purchases and so on. By the way, the purchase question that I just mentioned was not only about houses or cars, it was about trips or educational experiences or family get-togethers, etc. So it got into that aspect of what actually is a purchase or significant. What I would do better, it was a tough semester, but I had more meaningful one-on-one discussions with kids through Zoom than I think I would have if it were in person. There's something about, setting up a one-on-one appointment with a kid and having a chance. I know there are 50 kids, so it turned out to be, very time consuming. I worked very hard this semester, but it was, I thought, a more personal type of connection that I had with the students. And maybe this is where it differs from the audience of most of you, that this is not actually a high school class, this is college, but kids don't have to go across campus to see you or something like that. They just log on, and I appreciate ending my career with that type of opportunity. Thank you. I'm done.
All right, Peter.
Okay, I'm Peter Petto, and I have wrapped up my teaching. So I ended as COVID kicked in. I retired at the end of last school year. I'm continuing to do various support and enrichment activities with the Greater Council, Cleveland Council of Teachers of Math, and other places. And the thing that I think was a big gain for me this year was using games to teach math to arouse students' curiosity and playfulness. So in the last, I don't know if you've ever, it started for me when I graduated from college that it seemed like I found 3 good restaurants in the last 2 weeks of being at college. Or every time I'm ready to leave a place, I discover things that are really good. And I came into teaching as a second career teacher with a lot of experience in industry and manufacturing. And I thought my connection to how math and statistics is used would be the thing that would hook me into the students in a big way. But as the years went by, it seemed that when we played games, kids were much more engaged than they were when I was doing something more practical. And so since I retired, I started volunteering with a place called the Julia Robinson Math Festival, which is very focused on games that connect people with mathematics. I'll put a couple of examples of things we've been working on because we went into the whole online thing just like everybody else, because the festivals used to be in person and they've been essentially online. There are 2 activities we did. The first one I'm putting in here is called pool testing. So it does have, I guess, a little bit of relation to ways in which COVID was tested. And the second one is called Penguin Islands. I think with some of the games that are on the website, you'll see that just by playing games, and they're not directly connected with how am I going to score well on an AP question? Probably not. But the games, I think, are very good at getting kids' notion of complicated counting, get a good handle on that. So permutations, combinations, a lot of the things that underlie particularly discrete probability can be really strengthened. So I put a couple of examples in the chat that you can look at, and you could feel free to contact me if you want. We've spent the last month and a half putting together facilitator worksheets to go with the activities that are already online that work pretty well. The big fail for me for this year is planning. I thought when I was retired, I would just have all the time in the world and all the things. It seems like there were things every year as we would go through the statistics, I would want to learn more about. You know, we do projects at the end of the year and the conditions wouldn't be met for inference on somebody's project. And then what do? What kind of permutation tests, what kind of simulation could pull more info or pull better conclusions out of what the students actually had in hand, not some non-parametric statistics or something like that would be helpful. And I thought, well, when I every year I said, this summer, I'm going to learn that stuff. So next year when it comes around, I'll have a handle on it. And I didn't. And I thought, well, sure, when I retire, I'll do that. Well, I wish I had better planning so I could take this list of things I want to learn and make sure I actually learn them. So that's my fail. My question is, and this, I've been helping the Ohio Department of Education try to plan a statistics course for people not taking AP statistics, maybe instead of an Algebra 2 course or something like that for students who maybe aren't even going to a 4-year college or something like that. And I want to learn more about incorporating statistics through K12. And the thing that's really aroused my curiosity, I think I sent the question to Chris earlier today, is we're in the process of going through Gaze 2 as part of our guidance for writing this course. And I noticed that normal distributions really seems to have disappeared between Gaze 1 and Gaze 2 from what I read. And I'm wondering if that's a thing that we should be aware of, and if we shouldn't, when we're teaching this regular statistics course that's going to be more on big data, more on asking the right questions and stuff like that, you know, what guidance we could take from that. So that's where I'm at. So that's me. So thanks. And hopefully some of that's helpful. Oh, and beyond AP statistics looks interesting too. Thanks.
So Peter, would you like for me to maybe share with the group the response that I sent you?
Oh, I didn't see the response yet because I haven't looked at my email.
So Peter actually emailed me about the question regarding the normal distribution and how he was thinking it was maybe de-emphasized more in gaze 2 than it was in gaze 1. And I would say that that's probably true. And part of the reason is because of technology and our ability to do more with simulation. And what we're really trying to promote in gaze 2 is that, especially for the non-AP stat student or the non-intro college course student, where the more traditional inference techniques using probability distributions are still taught, for the non-AP stat courses and for the K through 12, we're promoting more use of simulation for inference. And as far as kind of properties of the normal distribution, instead of focusing on that probability distribution itself, we've been putting more emphasis on using the empirical rule.
Okay.
And so that I think is what the spirit of kind of what you're seeing in gaze 2. That's not to say the normal distribution is not important, and we actually do mention it in certain examples in level C. But I would say, yes, there's less emphasis on spending time doing the more traditional problems of finding percentiles and areas under the curve, because we're now simulating sampling distributions, and we can use those simulations in contrast to having to fit the normal curve to those sampling distributions.
Yeah, thanks. I like that. I like that answer a lot. And I mean, I think I've always found, maybe you have too, that students counting dots on a dot plot that are more extreme than a certain value give them a good sense of what's going on. And the minute they're measuring and thinking of the area under the curve, they start to, I don't know what, but it doesn't start, they don't feel like they've got their hands around it completely or their head around it completely.
That's correct. So we're trying to give more of that visual approach to those big statistical concepts of margin of error, p-values, things of that sort, statistical significance.
Sounds awesome. I like that. All right, Allie.
Hey everybody. Sorry, I wrote a novel there. I'm Allie George. I teach AP Stats. This is my 18th year teaching, but only my 2nd year teaching AP Stats. So I haven't done a normal year yet, so I don't know what that's like. This year is the first time I finally got through everything. Where my success this year was that my kids were really comfortable interrogating resources. Like they were going out and finding things and bringing it back. Like I said here, like I had a kid that emailed me on a Friday night, like, I'm trying to do research on this because I don't understand it. I found this study. I think this study's crap. Am I reading this wrong just because I'm a new stat student? And I was like, no, Pookie, you're right. That's not a great study. So, you know, that was a lot of fun seeing them go out and find things. I discovered my kids really like proving people wrong. And so kind of giving them that, helping them find those instances out in the real world were good. And so the thing that I'm working on, and I've gotten about halfway there, is at the beginning of each of my CED units, doing a day 1 where it's like, okay, this is where you're going to see this out in the real world. This is why we care. And so that's our intro day for each unit. And I'm not all the way there yet. I've got like, I think I said I've got 4 or 5 of them done. I'm still working on it, but that's been really helpful. And then I have a lot of kids that are usually taking AP government. And so anytime I can bring in a court case, they're thrilled. So they like looking at those too. So that's been my successes there. My struggle, obviously online is what it is. My kids were in person and I was at home, which was an interesting situation. We're a boarding school. And so some of them stayed home, but the majority of them were on campus. And so teaching through a computer is always a thing. But where the struggle was this year was with inference. just felt like a long slog for a lot of them, and they got behind and never caught up. And it just, I think for a lot of them, it felt like Groundhog's Day. We'd be doing the same thing over and over again. So that's where I know I need to do some work. But again, like I said, that's the first time I've actually taught chi-squared and slope, because I didn't get to it last year. So I know it was going to be rough, but better things next year. But the one thing I just wanted to say was I found this group right before COVID hit. And I think February was the first meeting I came to last year. And it's been a really great resource and support for me during all of this. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. And Chris, thank you for organizing it. And then I did the MWM workshop this past summer, and it was wonderful. So if you're interested in that, Rebecca was plugging it in the chat. Go do it. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. Those workshops are fabulous, but I love your idea of using case studies and stuff like that, connecting it. I think that's great. All right, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl Luoma from Independence High School, in which I just realized I wrote Independence High School again. I meant to say Independence, Ohio there. Allie actually reminded me of, I guess, another success that I had. So thanks, Allie. But I also this year started introducing more real world scenarios. So bringing in a court case, like we talked about a racial discrimination case that happened with or at Harvard. And we looked at like the Flint water crisis and did some inference with that. So I had kind of forgotten that that was some new stuff that I added in. So that was a success. The success that I wrote down here was, I feel like this year was the first year that I really became more flexible about due dates, homework, the timeline, and more of just like, okay, are we being exposed to the material? At some point, are you going to show me that you understand the material? And that was more important than, we have to do these 15 problems tonight and go over them tomorrow, if that makes sense. And then for next year, I just want to make sure that I do some more investigative task practice and just in general, taking multiple concepts and putting them together and having the kids not just, for a test, let's just focus on unit 4. But then after we get through units 1 through 4, okay, let's look at how all of this could be thrown at you at once. And I feel like this year it was more of just like, let's get through the content because of losing instructional time. So I feel like next year, that's one thing I really want to remind myself of.
All right, Rebecca.
Okay, well, I am not a teacher, but I do get to work with the ASA education outreach programs, and I get to work with wonderful teachers and wonderful educators. And so it's definitely been an interesting year. There's been some good things. It's been kind of neat to have more online outreach. I've really enjoyed these K12 chats. Thank you, Chris and Amy. It's been fun to see how, for example, the meeting within a meeting and the Beyond AP Statistics workshops, we did those online in collaboration with NCTM last summer, and we plan to do them again online this summer. And Trina, I've been meaning to talk with you and Dave as well. And so it's nice in those ways. We've been able to reach more teachers than we were in the in-person workshop, which was great. And then the increased collaborations have been really fun. It's been fun to get to work more with NCTM and see what NCTM is doing. And it's great that Trina's here. And so things like that have been really great. Other things have been kind of challenging too. And I'm sure, but what I would change, I'm sure there's things I dropped the ball on this year that I wish I hadn't. But I've definitely appreciated teachers more this year. My kindergartner and my second grader are still doing fully online school, which is interesting, but the teachers are rock stars and they're working really hard and somehow it's working. And yeah, so anyway, anything I'd want to ask you all is just if there's other things that you think of that would be helpful for ASA to do to support teachers and education. And of course, to thank Amy and Chris for hosting. So feel free to jump in if anybody has suggestions or if you want to email me or put it in the chat.
I mean, I think everybody understands that 2021 is not the year where everybody's their perfect self. Totally understandable, especially with kids. Rebecca, come on.
It's been interesting.
I'm sure. Chris?
So I'm next. Let me add a success to what I have typed here. Since Peter brought it up, I would have to say a success that I'm very proud of is that GAZE 2, the pre-K through 12 GAZE 2 was published last November, which was a joint collaboration between ASA and NCTM. And so I'd like to just encourage you to download it from the ASA website or NCTM website, or if you want an actual printed copy, you can, I think it's $15 to order from Amazon, and you can hold it in your hand, carry it in your pocketbook, whatever. But that's, I think, one that we're all very proud of at ASA and NCTM. I guess I'm not in the classroom now. My role now is more professional development with teachers. And I have to say that it was very difficult for me once the shutdown happened that I could no longer do in-person professional development, because I absolutely love getting in the room with teachers and sharing my love for statistics. So like all of you, I had to learn how to do things remotely. I would say I wasn't always successful, but I learned a lot. And a real positive that I found is that with remote professional development, I was able to reach more teachers. And to me, that's a real plus, especially as we're trying to spread the energy about integrating more statistics at K through 12. I think the other success, and Rebecca mentioned meeting within a meeting. This was really our first big professional development where we were going from in-person to remote. And I think a real positive of not doing in-person is that it's like writing a textbook. You know, when you go into a classroom and you're teaching, you're sort of freestyling. You're not always careful with your language, efficient with how you're presenting. But once you go to the remote setting, that all changes. You really have to tighten things up, and you have to really think about what you're delivering. And I found that a real positive, that I think now with remote instruction, I'm being a lot more careful about everything that I say when I'm working with teachers. So I consider that a success. What would I do differently? Well, I continue to learn about Zoom. I'm just like, I finally feel like I've learned all the little tricks I need to know about Zoom, and then something else comes up. I'll be in the middle of a Zoom presentation and then something doesn't work and I panic. It's like, oh no, I don't know what to do. So learning more about Zoom is definitely something that I want to work on for next year. And I guess the last thing I'd like to say is just how much I have missed for the past 14 months being in person with teachers. That's been one of the hardest things for me. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, that there'll be more opportunities to where I can do both remote and in-person professional development. And finally, I have loved the K through 12 chats. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for giving me the opportunity to sit here and listen to all of you. And I've learned so much this past year. So thank you.
You, Chris. All right. I think I am doing terribly, everybody, at this presentation, but I know that we have one more at least, Kyle.
I'm here.
And I know that we have a few other people present. And so after Kyle, if you want to chat with us, probably, you're all welcome. So Kyle.
So our year started all remote, and then we transitioned in November to doing some on campus and some remote, and now we're supposed to be mostly on campus, but we also have some students who are still remote. So not very different from, I think, what a lot of other people said. It was a tough year to transition to a new book. So I spent last summer trying to transition to a new book, but I was actually incredibly pleased about how well it seemed to work for the kids. I used open interest statistics, and it has, I would say the language is more compact. All of the data sets in the book are available online. So if you want to use any of the data sets to do something, you can, which has been great. I don't think I used them as much as I could have, but that was wonderful to be able to access them. Because it is an open source book, you can get an electronic copy or a paper copy, which is great, and the students can do whichever they like the best. So it seemed to work really well. I was concerned that they seemed to have fewer exercises, and that didn't seem to be an issue for my students. So that was, I thought, a really big success, given that it was a challenging year to start with. And I was also pleased that we were able to take a lot of the activities we did in class into the online environment. I created an activity package for them, which seemed to enable them to participate in activities even though we weren't in class. The other thing that was a success this year is I've done a capstone project. So it's a typical AP type class where I've had them do essentially write a research paper. And one of the problems I've been running into a lot is that they say, well, I want to do this topic. And then we spend the next 3 or 4 months looking for appropriate data for them to work with. And it's been really frustrating. And it's also been hard to get as far into the project as I want early in the year. So what I did is I curated a set of data sets and basically said, you can use any of these data sets and you can pick any research question you want as long as you can answer it with the data from one of these data sets. And that has worked extremely well. We were able to get so much further in the fall than we've ever been able to get before. The kids could do some exploratory analysis of the data, and even before we got to inference. So it was just really nice to see how much further, and in their presentations, which they're doing right now as we're finishing up, the quality has been much higher than what I've gotten in the past. So that seems in general to have been really successful. My perpetual challenge seems to be, how do I do this without having to invest time in about 12 drafts to help the students really, improve how they work with the methodology, what their steps are, how do they do their inference. But I think that will continue to be a challenge. But the product seems to make it worth it. For me, I hear the students saying can we have more time to work on the project in class? And I struggle a lot with how to balance in the in-person environment or the remote environment, how much time do you spend on the content you want to impart to the students, and how much time do you spend sort of assisting them and letting them work on a project that hopefully will allow them to use the content. So that seems to be an open question at this stage. So.
I think that was basically the same as me. How do we balance all these fun things that we want to do?
Yeah.
I get it. Christine and let's see, Robert. I don't know if Robert has left, but Christine, did you want to share?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello? Hey, how are you? My name is Christine. I teach special ed at a District 75 school in New York City. The biggest challenge that I have was differentiating for my students because they each have their own learning style. And what I decided to do was just find something that interests them. And since they're all interested in developing, a business idea of their own, I decided to start something simple with linear equation, and only because some of them do not have strong algebra foundation. And I started with that, hoping that they could understand. And so, the goal is for them to get further in the tough, rigorous and statistics. But if I was going to teach statistics back in special ed to my students, I think I would start off teaching them the basic algebra and then start introducing to statistics. So. Hello?
Hi. That sounds, it sounds like a good plan. I wonder if I know there's several people that have talked about Gaze 2. I wonder if there's some good suggestions for things that you could explore. And I'm trying to think of another resource. Good projects. Chris, do you have any suggestions? You're muted, Chris.
As far as looking for resources with statistics, without naming specific documents, I would encourage people to go to the ASA website, to the education tab on the ASA website, and go to the K-12 section. And there's a wealth of resources there. In particular, I would look at the STU lesson tasks that are there, as well as looking back at our journal, Statistics Teacher. There's lots of wonderful items there, but there's also other resources as well. There's Census at School, which is just a ready-made data set and not always a clean data set. So it gives students some practice with messy data. So just to kind of give a general pointing place, I would go to the ASA website and look at resources there.
It's true.
Thank you.
I do Census at School in my class, and my students love it. And I do use the data. Not my students' data, other students' data. It's very nice.
So do you recommend that, because I spoke with my AP at the school, and she said, maybe I could take a half a term to teach, the important parts of algebra to the students who, lack these skills. Because some of them can't even do the simple basic computation. And, I have to move quickly. And she said, then tap into introducing statistics. So what do you think? As
Is this Algebra 1 that you're speaking of?
Yes.
Algebra 1. Well, there's really many ideas, big ideas in statistics that you can talk about without the algebra. The algebra really kind of comes into the analysis phase, maybe of what we were trying to teach with our students. Trying to think what would be a good resource.
Also, the meeting within a meeting might be a good thing for you to think about and see if there's activities, that you're learning from there that I mean,
I would encourage you with the students that you feel like maybe their algebra background is, they're still trying to work on that. Go to the STU website on ASA and particularly look at the K-8 task, the tasks that are set up for the elementary through middle school. And there's some very, very rich tasks there that there's really not a need for these algebra skills, I think, that you're concerned about.
Miss, there's
Okay.
also the Bridging the Gap book for K-8, and I can put a link in the chat because that's free online now.
Yes, those investigations from Bridging the Gap, which is middle school, are now all available free at ASA.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
You think maybe that Making Sense of Statistical Studies, isn't that online as well?
That is, and actually, even though it's more focused for high school, I think she could use that as well, because it really is focused more on the design of studies and trying to ask good questions about statistical studies, not so much the analysis phase. I think that would be excellent as well. Amy mentioned the meeting within a meeting, and I'll follow up from what Rebecca was saying. We are going to have our meeting within a meeting again remotely this year. And we're going to offer the middle school and the high school sessions in 2 separate weeks this time. Typically, they're offered at the same time, so you have to choose between middle and high school. But we're going to offer the middle school the week of July the 12th. And then the following week, July the 19th, will be the high school offering. And it will be over 3 days during those weeks. So I would encourage you to think about possibly signing up for those, or at least one of them. Casey Maddox and I will be teaching the middle school one the week of the July 12th. And the high school one, I think, will once again have Catherine Haverson, Catherine Case, and Anna Ferguson from New Zealand teaching the high school one. And I promise you, there'll be a wealth of these tasks that we're talking about, a lot of interactive instruction. So if you can work that into your calendar, I think that would be and I know at least at the middle school week, we're going to do several examples from GACE 2. So you'll see quite a bit of instruction from GACE 2.
I think we've all shared. That's great. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Appreciate it.
Well, we are close to time to end. So I think what we're going to plan is that we'll take the summer off. We'll take June and July off from the K-12 chat, and we'll plan on starting back up again this August with the new school year. So we'll be sending out information to you probably at the end of July, 1st of August with our next chat. And we'll line up some great presenters for you again next year. And then if you have any suggestions for what we could do with the K-12 chat, please send those to me, and we will try to get those incorporated next year. So thank you again, and have a great summer.
Yeah, good luck, everybody, wrapping up your years like me.
Happy summer, everybody.
See ya.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.